The rain falls softly against the windows of the small cafe in Hongdae, each droplet creating tiny rivers that blur the neon lights of Seoul's nightlife district. Inside, amid the gentle hum of conversation and the soft clinking of coffee cups, sits Park Min-jun, a man whose perfectly tailored suit cannot hide the weight of regret that has settled in his shoulders over the past 3 years. His fingers trace the rim of his untouched Americano as he stares at the entrance, waiting. The familiar scent of roasted beans mingles with the faint aroma of jasmine from the woman at the next table. But all he can think about is the perfume she used to wear, sweet gardenia mixed with something uniquely hers that he could never quite name. 3 years. 3 years since he made the biggest mistake of his life. 3 years since he walked away from the only woman he'd ever truly loved, leaving her standing at the altar of the Grand Hyatt Seoul, her silk wedding dress flowing like moonlight around her as tears streamed down her face. The image haunts him still. Not just her tears, but the way she held her head high, refusing to let the 300 guests see her completely break. The bell above the door chimes, and his heart stops. There she is. Lee So-young steps inside, shaking raindrops from her navy blue coat, her hair shorter now than it was 3 years ago, falling just past her shoulders in soft waves. She's more beautiful than he remembered, if that's even possible. The years have given her a certain grace, a quiet confidence that makes his chest tighten with both admiration and loss. She scans the cafe, her dark eyes finding his immediately. For a moment, time seems suspended. She doesn't smile, doesn't frown. Her expression is carefully neutral, the kind of mask she's perfected in her career as one of Seoul's most successful marketing directors. But he knows her well enough to catch the slight tremor in her hands as she approaches the table. Min-jun, she says, her voice steady but softer than he expected. She sits across from him, placing her small purse on the table between them like a barrier. So-young. Her name feels foreign on his tongue after 3 years of silence. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. She studies his face, and he wonders what she sees. The sleepless nights, the weight he's lost, the way success has felt hollow without her to share it with. Your message said it was important, that you needed to explain something about that day. That day. She can't even say it. Their wedding day. The day he destroyed everything they'd built together. Over 5 years of dating, 2 years of engagement, and a lifetime of dreams. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, he begins, his voice barely above a whisper. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to understand why I left. I need you to know that it wasn't because I didn't love you. So-young's composure cracks slightly. You didn't love me? The words come out sharper than she intended, and she immediately regains control, smoothing her expression. Min-jun, you left me at the altar, in front of everyone we knew. My parents, your parents, our friends, our colleagues. You left me standing there like a fool while everyone whispered and stared. The pain in her voice cuts through him like a blade. He remembers the phone calls afterward, from his mother crying and asking how he could do such a thing. From his best friend Jin-woo, who called him every name in the book before hanging up. From her sister, who threatened to ruin his career if he ever tried to contact So-young again. I know, he says. I know how it looked. I know how it felt. But please, just listen to me. Just this once. She checks her watch. A new one, he notices. Elegant and silver, where she used to wear the vintage gold one he'd given her for their first anniversary. You have 20 minutes. 20 minutes to explain 3 years of regret. 20 minutes to tell her about the letter that changed everything. 20 minutes to maybe, possibly, earn a second chance he doesn't deserve. Do you remember the week before our wedding? He asks. You were so stressed about the final preparations. You kept saying you felt like you were forgetting something important. She nods slowly. The flowers. I was worried about the flowers and the seating arrangements. and whether your grandmother would be comfortable with the menu. You were perfect, he says, and means it. You handled everything beautifully, but you were also distant, different. I thought it was just wedding nerves, but then he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a worn envelope, yellowed at the edges. Her name is written on it in unfamiliar handwriting. So Young's eyes widen as she recognizes it. Where did you get that? Your apartment, the morning of our wedding. I went there to surprise you with breakfast. You'd already left for the salon, but this was on your kitchen counter. It was opened, and He swallows hard. I'm sorry, I read it. She stares at the letter, her face pale. You had no right. I know, but I did, and what I read. So Young, why didn't you tell me about Kim Jae-hyun? The name hangs in the air between them like a confession. So Young's carefully constructed composure finally crumbles, and she covers her face with her hands. How could I tell you? How could I tell the man I was about to marry that my first love had written to me? That he was back from New York and wanted to see me? Because you were supposed to trust me, Minjun says, his voice breaking. Because we were supposed to be partners. Because I would have understood. Would you have? She looks up at him, tears threatening to spill. Would you really have understood if I told you that the man I thought I'd forgotten had written to tell me he'd made a mistake? That he'd spent 5 years regretting letting me go? That he wanted to fight for me? Minjun feels like he's been punched in the chest. Is that what the letter said? Among other things, she wipes her eyes carefully, trying not to smudge her makeup. Jae-hyun wrote that he'd seen our engagement announcement in the newspaper, that he'd been following my career, my life, from New York. He said he'd left Korea because he thought he wasn't good enough for me, that he needed to prove himself first. But he realized that he'd wasted 5 years being proud when he should have been fighting for us. And you? What did you feel when you read it? So Young is quiet for a long moment, staring out at the rain-soaked street. Confused, hurt, angry, but not what I expected to feel. I thought if I ever heard from him again, I'd be happy. I thought I'd realize I'd been settling for second best. She looks directly at Minjun. But I didn't. I felt sorry for him, but I also felt grateful. Grateful? Grateful that he'd let me go, because if he hadn't, I never would have met you. I never would have known what real love felt like. Her voice cracks on the last word. I was going to throw the letter away and never mention it. I was going to marry you and be happy and forget that Kim Jae-hyun ever existed. The weight of his mistake hits him like a physical blow. So Young, but you read it, and you assumed the worst. You assumed I was having second thoughts, that I was still in love with him. You didn't trust me enough to ask. You didn't love me enough to fight for me. That's not true, he says desperately. I loved you more than anything. That's why I left. That makes no sense. It does, if you understand what I was thinking that morning. He leans forward, his hands flat on the table between them. I read that letter, and I saw how much he loved you, how much he regretted losing you. And I realized that I'd never had to fight for you. You'd chosen me easily, naturally. We'd fallen in love without drama, without obstacles. It was comfortable. Comfortable, she repeats, and there's hurt in her voice. I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it was easy because it was right. But reading that letter, I started wondering if you'd chosen me because I was safe, because I was there when he wasn't. I started wondering if you deserved someone who'd move mountains for you, who'd chase you across the world. You were enough, she whispers. You were more than enough. But I didn't know that then. I panicked. I thought about you walking down that aisle, and I imagined you thinking about him. I imagined you wondering what if for the rest of our lives. I thought, he takes a shaky breath. I thought I was setting you free to choose what you really wanted. By humiliating me in front of everyone we knew. I know how it looked. I know how cruel it was, but I thought if I made you hate me, you'd be able to move on. You'd be able to find someone who deserved you. So Young stares at him in disbelief. You made that decision for me. You decided what I wanted, what I deserved, without even asking me. I know it was wrong. I know it was cowardly, but I was scared. So Young. I was 28 years old, and I was about to marry the most amazing woman I'd ever met, and I was terrified that I wasn't good enough for her. You weren't good enough for me, she says quietly, and his heart breaks all over again. But not because you were lacking something, because you didn't trust me, because you didn't trust us. They sit in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 years of unspoken words settling between them. Minjun watches her, memorizing her face, knowing this might be the last time he sees her this close. What happened to him? He asks finally. Jae-hyun, I don't know, she says. I never contacted him. I never will. The day you left me at the altar, you didn't just break my heart. You broke my ability to trust anyone who claims to love me. The words hit him like ice, water. So Young, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a second chance. I'm asking you to let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. What man is that? She asks, and there's something dangerous in her tone. The man who makes decisions for me. The man who runs away when things get complicated. The man who thinks love means making grand gestures instead of having difficult conversations. The man who spent 3 years learning from his mistakes, he says, desperately. The man who's realized that loving someone means trusting them, even when you're scared. The man who's learned that real love isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable. And what makes you think I need that man in my life? The question hangs in the air, and Minjun realizes he doesn't have a good answer. He wants to tell her about the successful business he's built, about how he's matured, about how he's learned to communicate better. But all of that feels selfish, like he's asking her to applaud his growth without considering what she might have lost in the process. Maybe you don't, he admits. Maybe you're better off without me. Maybe you've built a life that's full and happy and complete. But I had to try. I had to tell you that not a day has passed that I haven't regretted leaving you. I had to tell you that I understand now what I was too scared to understand then. That you chose me not because I was safe, but because you loved me. Really loved me. So Young's expression softens slightly. How do you know that? Because I know you. I knew you then, and I can see you now. You're not the kind of woman who settles. You're not the kind of woman who chooses the easy path. You're brave and strong, and you fight for what you want. If you'd wanted him, you would have chosen him. If you'd wanted to leave me, you would have left me. But you didn't. You chose me every day for 7 years, and I was too insecure to see it. Tears are sliding down her cheeks now, and she doesn't bother to wipe them away. You're right, I did choose you. Every day. Even when we fought. Even when things were difficult. Even when other people tried to tell me I could do better. I chose you because I loved you, not because you were convenient. I know that now. But knowing it now doesn't change what you did then. It doesn't change the fact that when I needed you to choose me back, you ran away. You're right, he says. I can't change what I did. I can't take back the pain I caused you. But I can promise you that I would never do it again. I can promise you that I've learned what love really means. And what does it mean? It means staying. It means having hard conversations. It means trusting your partner even when you're afraid. It means fighting for your relationship instead of running away from it. So Young checks her watch again. Your 20 minutes are up. So Young, please. I need to go. She stands, gathering her coat and purse. Thank you for the explanation. I needed to hear it. Does that mean you'll think about it? About us? She pauses at the edge of the table, looking down at him. There is no us, Minjun. There hasn't been for 3 years. But there could be. Could there? She tilts her head, studying him. Do you know what I did after you left me at the altar? He shakes his head. I went on our honeymoon alone. I had already taken the time off work, and I couldn't bear the thought of sitting in my apartment while everyone gossiped about what had happened. So I went to Jeju Island by myself. I stayed in the hotel room we'd booked. I ate at the restaurants we'd planned to visit. I walked on the beaches where we were supposed to walk together. The image of her alone on their honeymoon makes him feel physically ill. And you know what I realized? She continues. I realized that I was okay. I was heartbroken and humiliated and angry. But I was okay. I was stronger than I'd thought. I didn't need you to be complete. I know you don't need me, he says quietly. But maybe you could want me anyway. I did want you. For 7 years, I wanted you more than anything. But wanting someone who doesn't trust you, who doesn't respect you enough to include you in the biggest decisions of your life, that's not love, Minjun. That's obsession. It wasn't obsession, it was fear. And what's changed? What's different now that makes you think you won't get scared again? He's quiet for a long moment, considering her question. I've been in therapy for 2 years. I've learned about my patterns, about why I run away when things get difficult. I've learned how to sit with uncomfortable feelings instead of trying to escape them. That's good, she says, and she sounds like she means it. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. I've also learned that I can't be happy without you. I've tried. I've dated other people. I've thrown myself into work. I've traveled. I've done everything I could think of to move on. But nothing works. Nothing fills the space you left behind. That's not my problem to solve. I know it's not your job to make me happy. But I hoped that maybe you'd felt the same way. That maybe you'd missed me too. For a moment, her mask slips, and he sees something vulnerable in her eyes. Of course I missed you. I loved you for 7 years. You don't just turn that off. Then why can't we try again? Because missing someone and trusting them are 2 different things. Because love without trust is it's just longing. And I'm tired of longing for things I can't have. She starts to walk toward the door, then turns back. Minjun, I need you to understand something. The reason I agreed to meet you tonight wasn't because I wanted to get back together. It was because I needed closure. I needed to understand why you did what you did so I could finally let go of the anger I've been carrying. And do you understand? Yes. And I can see that you're sorry. I can see that you've grown. I can even see that you loved me in your own flawed way. But sorry doesn't undo 3 years of pain. Growth doesn't erase the fact that you abandoned me when I needed you most. Love doesn't justify the choice you made to decide my fate without including me in the decision. She pulls her coat tighter around herself, preparing to face the rain. I hope you find happiness, Minjun. I really do. But it won't be with me. So Young, wait. He stands, his chair scraping against the floor. What if I told you that I've learned how to fight? That I won't run away again? I'd say it's too late for that. She turns to face him one last time. The time to fight for me was 3 years ago, when I was standing at that altar in my wedding dress, waiting for you to come back. The time to fight for me was in the days and weeks after, when I was trying to put my life back together. The time to fight for me was when I needed you, not when you decided you needed me. I need you now, he says desperately. I know, but I don't need you anymore. And maybe that's what you never understood. Love isn't about need, it's about choice. And I choose not to go through this again. She walks to the door, her heels clicking against the floor. Just before she reaches it, she turns back one more time. For what it's worth, she says, her voice soft but firm. I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. I won't carry this anger anymore. And then she's gone, disappearing into the rainy Seoul night, leaving him alone with his untouched coffee and the weight of 3 years of regret. Minjun sits back down heavily, staring at the letter on the table. He picks it up, thinking about the chain of events it set in motion. If he'd never read it, would they be married now? Would they be happy? Or would his insecurity have found another way to sabotage their relationship? He thinks about what she said, that love is a choice, not a need. He understands now that he'd been loving her the wrong way, possessively rather than freely. He'd been so afraid of losing her that he'd lost her anyway. The rain continues to fall outside, washing the streets clean. Minjun sits in the cafe until closing time, thinking about second chances and the difference between deserving them and earning them. He thinks about the woman he let go and the man he's become in her absence. 3 years ago, he'd walked away from the altar because he thought he was setting her free. Tonight, she'd walked away from him because she'd set herself free. The irony isn't lost on him. As he finally leaves the cafe, stepping out into the cool night air, he makes a decision. He won't try to contact her again. He won't show up at her workplace or send her flowers or write her letters. He'll respect her choice, even though it's breaking his heart all over again. But he'll remember what she taught him tonight. That love is about trust, about choosing someone every day, about staying when things get difficult. He'll carry that lesson with him, and maybe someday he'll be brave enough to love someone else the way he should have loved her. As he walks through the rain-soaked streets of Seoul, Minjun whispers a prayer of gratitude for the 7 years he had with her, and a prayer of hope that somewhere in this vast city, Lee So-young is finally, truly happy. The story of their love ended 3 years ago at an altar in the Grand Hyatt Seoul. But tonight, in a small cafe in Hongdae, the story of their healing finally began.